Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the podcast, and welcome to your AEW Dynamite post-show, man. And there is a lot to talk about in today's episode. Obviously, we're only a few days away until we get to AEW's biggest show of the year, being All In. We're going to talk about the build-up, or lack thereof. We're going to talk about a couple things that went down last night on Dynamite, and just my overall thoughts of last night's episode of Dynamite. And just what I think about All In as well, man. Give you guys, obviously, the full rundown of the show that took place last night. But before I even get started in the full rundown of the show, man, I just want to talk about a couple of things when it pertains to Dynamite before I get into the full breakdown of the show. So, first and foremost, man, do I think the build-up going into All In has been all that? No. To be honest with you guys, man, I want to start with the Ospreay and Kenny Omega shit, to be honest with you, before I get into full rundown of everything. You know, last night, AEW the show was taped, first and foremost, but they were in Glasgow, Scotland. The crowd was good. I think the overseas crowds are great, whether they're in England or Glasgow or, anywhere in the UK, France. I know AEW just recently announced they're going to have a Grand Slam show in France relatively soon. So obviously, the overseas crowds are always great, whether it's from the AEW side of things or whether it's over in WWE. So the crowd last night was not terrible. What I will say is this, man. Last night we saw Will Ospreay, which we'll talk more in depth about this in today's episode. But we saw Ospreay kick off the show, talking about his, history that he's had, obviously, with Omega, stemming from the PWG days, obviously, and obviously his time over in New Japan, them wrestling each other at Wrestle Kingdom, which is still New Japan's biggest show of the year. I'm going to be honest, man. I genuinely believe that the best part of the story, if you want to call it that we got in here between Ospreay and Kenny Omega, hands down, had to have been the sit-down that we got between Ospreay and Omega when they sat down with Renee Paquette in this story. In the first couple weeks building up this matchup here between Ospreay and Kenny Omega, a lot of it was, I respect you. At the end of the day, you're looking at two guys between Ospreay and Kenny Omega who are two of the biggest baby faces of the company. And I said this last week, and I'm going to say the same shit this week, that AEW and Ospreay and Kenny Omega are literally trying to turn chicken shit into chicken salad. And, buddy, it's still remaining chicken shit. You had Kenny Omega attack Will Ospreay, I believe it might have been last week, or the week prior to that, where I think it might have been last week, that Kenny Omega ended up hitting a one-winged angel, sending Ospreay into a table on the outside. When he's cussing out Ospreay and calling him a piece of shit and an asshole and everything else like this. And AEW and Kenny Omega thought it was a great idea to try to give Kenny Omega some heel tendencies going into this year's All In. And then you had him rocking back and forth like he's Mankind back in the day when he's sitting back in the boiler room waiting for Undertaker to show up so Mankind could beat the shit out of him. It's just, my thing is this. I don't know if it's any kind of backstage politics. I'm sure there is within AEW. And a lot of people are saying, well, I don't understand why this is happening or this is happening. Obviously everybody's going to have their conspiracy theories as far as why this match is taking place. Why are they not booking it Will Ospreay versus MJF, which we'll talk about that in today's episode as well, as far as MJF's concerned. Why we're not getting that matchup between Max and Ospreay. I think genuinely the idea is this, that, Will Ospreay won the Owen. Obviously, Ospreay is a big deal for AEW, and he's a great superstar. He's one of the best in the world. People would say what they want. Oh, he doesn't draw attention to the show. He's not a ratings pusher kind of guy. Yada, 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 this, that, and the fourth. At the end of the day, people cannot discredit what Will Ospreay can do in that squared circle. I'm going to put that out there first and foremost. The guy's an incredible talent. He's an incredible wrestler. Yeah, his microphone skill, work can be a little better. But as far as in-ring ability and what he can do inside that ring, I don't think there's anybody right now that can match what Will Ospreay can do inside that squared circle. But what I will say is this. I do think this was something where maybe Tony Khan or Will Ospreay had sat down once Ospreay had won the Owen, or even prior to that, and Ospreay had talked to Tony Khan and said, hey, this is the match that I want. I want the main event at Wembley. I want it to be myself taking on Kenny Omega for the AEW World title. How can we make this happen? So Tony Khan, I think, agreed to the stipulations from Ospreay, and that's the reason why MJF dropped the title to Kenny Omega at Beach Break. Now, I don't know why or what this did for MJF. I mean, my thing with MJF is that obviously he still has a storyline alone with Andrade. This story between Andrade and MJF has been going on for quite some time now, past few months. And we never had any kind of interaction as far as what they can do in the ring at all yet. All it's been is some back and forth banter. MJF is pissed off at Andrade. Andrade's pissed off at MJF. I mean, hell, we didn't even get a matchup between Andrade and MJF, I believe, at Grand Slam Mexico. So, as far as I'm concerned. So, I don't know, what the deal is here with MJF and Andrade. I mean, I know obviously we're going into All In. They're having a Casino Gauntlet match where, Andrade's the first entrant. MJF is the second entrant into the matchup. We got more names announced for the Casino Gauntlet. Chris Jericho is also announced for the Casino Gauntlet. Excuse me. It's one of those things where I'd rather had seen a singles match between MJF and Andrade than Andrade and MJF in a Casino Gauntlet match for All In. But I think with Ospreay, a lot of people are going to have their frustrations with this matchup with Kenny Omega and Ospreay, the main event at All In this weekend. For what it's worth, do I think it's going to be a good match? Absolutely. I think both Ospreay and Kenny Omega are going to kill it at All In. The issue I think a lot of people are having, and myself included, is the lack of storyline and the lack of build going into this highly anticipated matchup at All In for the AEW World title. And at the fact that, we saw Will Ospreay last night in the go-home show to All In, and there's one guy that's missing. And that's your AEW World Champion, Kenny Omega. Kenny Omega was a no-show last night in the go-home show of AEW's biggest show of the year. That's a fucking problem. That's a huge problem. Meanwhile, you have a guy parading around with a title that's not even his, that he lost, with MJF walking around with the Triple B, still stating that he's still the true world champion. MJF had more airtime in the go-home show than Kenny Omega did. Omega wasn't even present last night for the go-home show for AEW's All In that's taking place on Sunday, which is their biggest show of the year. I have a huge fucking problem with that. And I told you guys last week, and I'm going to say the same shit again as well when it pertains to Kenny Omega. I mean, is this something where, when you're looking at Kenny Omega, and the years that he's put in, is this something where Kenny Omega is at the tail end of his career? Are we looking at, I'm not saying a retirement tour yet for Kenny Omega, but are we looking at something that after All In, Kenny Omega is taking a huge step back in dates and is going to be more on a, part-time schedule? Kind of like how Bryan Danielson was before he ended up leaving after his retirement tour. Is this something where we're getting that same thing here with Kenny Omega? I mean, it's already been rumored that, you have other people out there, stating that the Young Bucks might be done with AEW here after their contracts are up or taking a step back. I mean, Kenny Omega, he's up there in age. I believe Kenny Omega is in his 40s, for sure. And at this point, is he at the tail end of his career? Yeah. I don't think there's much for Kenny Omega to do at this point that is going to be something that's going to be, well, we need to see this from Kenny Omega. Pardon me. Kenny Omega's done it all. Kenny Omega is a guy that, in my opinion, with all due respect to the talent that was at New Japan at that time, you had the likes of Okada, you had Naito, you had Jericho also involved, obviously Ospreay. You had a lot of talents at one time in New Japan Pro Wrestling. The Young Bucks, Adam Page was wrestling for the New Japan as well. But if you talk about New Japan back in the day, I'm saying, early 2000s, mid 2000s, you had to put the names of Kenny Omega in that conversation as one of the best to ever do it, especially in New Japan. Hell, they were printing money with Kenny Omega. For the G1 Climax to the Bullet Club and joining up with, Matt and Nick Jackson and, everything they did in New Japan, bro. You go back to the Being the Elite days when they were having their excursions over in New Japan, working in Ring of Honor. The incorporation of the Bullet Club in New Japan with Kenny Omega and the Young Bucks at the helm of that and having their Being Elite YouTube channel, it really not only put them on the map, but it also put New Japan on the map because they were showcasing New Japan shit, where a lot of people in the States really weren't familiar with New Japan's product because not a lot of people in the States knew anything about New Japan Pro Wrestling. Unless, you're some kind of wrestling historian or super fan. For the casual fan, they had no idea what the hell New Japan Pro Wrestling was all about. Not only that, even PWG. And Young Bucks, and Kenny Omega gave shout-outs to PWG as well. So, And they were selling merch at PWG events. And, I mean, PWG is synonymous in pro wrestling. So I think, obviously there's history here between Omega and Ospreay, stemming from the PWG days, obviously New Japan. I think the reason why people are not thrilled with this matchup is a lack of storyline, lack of build, and the fact that, two things. You're trying to turn Kenny Omega heel, and you had the best heel in the business with MJF going into All In, and you guys dropped the fucking ball with MJF and crowned Kenny Omega the new AEW World Champion. That's the problem with all this. I mean, yeah, it's still on paper going to be a great match between Omega and Ospreay. But the money match was MJF, in my opinion, versus Will Ospreay. 100%. And my thing is, a lot of people I talk to that do this, man, their biggest thing, their biggest gripe with this is not just All In, but where do we go after All In? How does the landscape of AEW going to look after we get past All In? With Will Ospreay being the AEW World Champion and being at the helm of AEW. What's next? Going into All Out. You know what I mean? Like, there's a lot of variables that go into this. And I think, for me, it's just, not seeing Kenny Omega on the show last night, even having a face-to-face, a contract signing, anything, to hype up the last little hoorah before we get the matchup here between Ospreay and Omega. I think it was piss poor, not only on AEW's part, but Kenny Omega's part. I mean, here you are, the AEW World Champion, bro. I mean, you're representing this company. The biggest prize of this business being AEW World Champion, and you're a no-show in Glasgow, Scotland. And Ospreay has to carry this match going into All In. I have a problem with that. Meanwhile, like I said, you got MJF, who's walking around with a title, stating that he's the real world champion. But there's no signs of Kenny Omega. I got a huge fucking problem with that. Especially going into the biggest show of the year, bro. I mean, it's not like you're going to see Roman Reigns not be a part of the go-home show going into the biggest show of the year for WWE being WrestleMania. Come on, bro. You got to sell tickets. You got to put asses in seats. Kenny Omega's a no-show. Where the fuck is Kenny Omega? You know what I mean? Especially after what you did with putting Ospreay through a fucking table with a one-winged angel and you're a no-show. I mean, come on, bro. Like, what the fuck are we doing here? What the hell are we doing? You know what I mean? Then you got the main event between Swerve and Jack Perry, which we'll talk about in today's episode too. Why? What the hell does Jack Perry have anything to do with Swerve Strickland? I don't even think Jack Perry's on the fucking show for All In. He might be a part of the Casino Gauntlet, maybe. Other than that, I have no idea if Jack Perry's even booked for the fucking show on Sunday. And not for nothing, you had this little interaction here between Swerve and Adam Page, and Swerve saying, hey, if you're putting out an open challenge, you better back up your bullshit. Why didn't we see Adam Page show up after the match, the main event last night, holding up the trio's title on the stage, kind of, taunting Swerve Strickland? Swerve has a smile on his face, cracks a smile on his face, and the lights go out, and the show goes off the air, because it builds story, and we all know at this goddamn point that more than likely Swerve is going to be a part of this stable coming in and introducing the New Day to AEW. And hell, I just found out because there was a media call for AEW, and supposedly they're doing a Casino Gauntlet style matchup for these trios. You have all these different trios involved, from the Bang Bang Gang to the Dogs to all these different trios, and AEW being involved in this Casino Gauntlet type tag team trios, matchup. And Tony Khan announced that there's going to be a wild card team. We all know that wild card team is going to be introducing, or should be introducing, Swerve and the New Day. And if you're going to do that, then I would have 100% have those guys go over and crown them the new trios champions. Absolutely. Absolutely. Because for multiple reasons. Because at the end of the day, right now, that you can look at a situation where not only the Swerve might reinvent the Mogul Embassy with Prince Nana, and I've been saying that for a while. Two, right now, Swerve really ain't doing shit. Adam Page just came back, and he really wasn't doing shit. Page has already made it relatively known that he's never going to be able to challenge for the AEW World title again. Okay. There's other titles on AEW. Number one. Number two, I think a lot of people wouldn't be opposed to seeing Swerve versus Adam Page go at it one-on-one in the middle of the ring once again. I mean, we're talking about two guys that probably had the biggest rivalry, one of the best storylines in all of AEW's history in the past, 7 years. I'm not against it. I'm not against it at all. And I like the way that they're going to incorporate Kofi and Austin Creed into AEW with them teaming up with Swerve. Because I think at the end of the day, Kofi and Creed and Swerve, they're better as a trio for right now. I know some people might be against that, but I mean, look at the New Day when they had Big E. Now, I don't know if they're going to come in as heels or baby faces. I mean, if you look at the aspect between Swerve and Adam Page, one's a baby face and one's definitely a heel. You know, or Swerve's kind of in the middle. Baby face or heel. So, yeah, I'm excited for the trios match, but what I'm not excited about when it pertains to that trios match at All In is that Tony Khan announced this fucking match to be the kickoff or the buy-in. This matchup here is for the buy-in for All In. You got to be fucking kidding me. So you're telling me that you want to debut one of the biggest tag teams of pro wrestling, being Austin Creed and Kofi Kingston, a part of the New Day, and you want to debut these guys in the buy-in? You lost your fucking mind. Because at the end of the day, yeah, there's a lot of free agents out there, but these two guys right here are two of the biggest free agents right now in all of professional wrestling. The New Day have been a part of WWE for what? Almost, 17 years? Close to it? And you're gonna debut these guys on the fucking buy-in for AEW's All In? Holy shit. Which we'll talk more about that as well, as far as some of these surprises that I've heard going into All In. We'll talk about that more in today's episode as well. But man, when Tony Khan announced this, I mean, off rip, the wildcard team had to be Swerve, Kofi, and Austin Creed. But to have this goddamn match in the buy-in for All In, holy shit, man. Jesus Christ, you're one of the biggest tag teams in all professional wrestling. You're going to have these guys debut in the fucking buy-in for the biggest show of the year? Jesus Christ. Wow. I mean, are they going to get a huge pop? Absolutely. I mean, shit, bro. If you're going to put them a part of the goddamn buy-in, you might as well have those guys show up last night on Dynamite to put more asses in seats for All In. You guys probably... Showing Kofi Kingston and Xavier Woods last night in some way, you would have sold out Wembley. I guarantee you. You want to fill out that show and be sold out? I guarantee you, without a shadow of a doubt, that if they would have showed Kofi or Austin Creed last night in a vignette or some shit, that show would have been sold out. 100%. Because right now, I think when Dynamite went on the air last night, I think they were sitting roughly at 43,000 and some change. You would have showed Kofi in a New Day last night in some kind of vignette or some shit. It's a $50,000, not $50,000, 50,000 seats easily. And by the way, I apologize for coughing. I'm still dealing with this cold, man. It's kicking my ass. But yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, it's just shit. Sometimes shit does make sense, and sometimes shit doesn't. And sometimes it's just the writing's on the fucking wall. You know what I mean? Obviously, the build up to this shit has been lackluster. The storyline between Ospreay and Kenny Omega has definitely been lackluster. The best thing coming out of that entire story had to be the sit-down between Ospreay, Omega, and Renee a couple weeks ago when, you know, both Omega and Ospreay are talking about the history that these two guys have had. Meeting from their, you know, back in the days, meeting at PWG, and obviously their time over in New Japan, working a match at Wrestle Kingdom. I mean, that was probably the best part of the story that we got. I mean, there's other matches that are on the table too. I mean, you got another dream match here. That's the other fucking thing. You got a dream match here that a lot of people have been clamoring for years, ever since Copeland and Cage came into AEW. Man, when are we going to get that matchup here between, you know, Copeland and Cage and the Bucks? Well, now we're getting it all in, and there's little to no build or fucking storyline for this match. You waited till the absolute last fucking minute last night to book the Bucks and Copeland in a six-man tag team matchup, taking on Brian Cage, I believe it was Doyle, and Rocky Romero. No sign of Christian Cage until the very last minute, where Cage shows up, hits a low blow on Matt Jackson. Nick Jackson hits a super kick, and then finally Copeland says, "The hell with this," and hits a spear on Nick Jackson. Meanwhile, we are roughly, 4 days out until we get to All In, and this is somehow, in some way, a fucking dream match? With no fucking build, man. No storyline. Nothing. And this is a dream match, bro. I don't think a lot of people actually give a rat's ass about this fucking match. I sure as hell don't. To me, it doesn't feel like it's a dream match. I mean, Christian Cage said it itself in that promo. It's another day in the office. Yeah, I feel like that's exactly right, because there's little to no fucking build for this matchup. Nothing. You had to sit down, again, with Renee, And that was it. No storyline, no build, no attacks backstage, nothing. No, barely any interaction. I mean, come on, bro. What the fuck are we doing here? And this is somehow, some way called a dream match. Come on, man. Where's the fucking story? Where is the fucking story? Last night, AEW, with what they put together last night, should be fucking embarrassed going into All In. I'm sorry. And if you're one of those people out there, one of those AEW sickos, oh, last night's show was one of the best shows of all time, you are the reason why this shit is the way it is. I'm sorry to break the fucking news to you. You need to get your head checked out. I'm sorry. Last night's show fucking sucked. The Continental Cup, I think, is fucking pointless. When we have a Continental Classic most likely happening in December. And then the whole stipulation with the Continental Cup is, well, you get this fucking trophy and you become the Continental Champion. And then we get last night, in the matches that we had Moxley taking on Claudio, and we had Nigel McGuinness versus Kyle O'Reilly. Meanwhile, Nigel McGuinness is a broadcaster for AEW Collision. Not trying to discredit what he's done in the ring, but at the end of the day, the guy's a broadcaster. He's on commentary. You know, he's going through all these injuries and dealing with all this shit leading up to these matches, and then we got Jon Moxley versus Nigel McGuinness in the finals for the Continental Cup at All In. Give me a fucking break. And people are like, oh, I don't understand why they did this. You know damn well why they booked this fucking match. One, you're not going to keep Jon Moxley off the biggest show of the fucking year. Wake up and smell the goddamn Folgers. Number two, you're in the UK, in Wembley. You're not going to have Nigel McGuinness come out to Oasis at Wembley? Give me a fucking break. Come on, man. The writing's on the fucking wall, folks. And what, we're going to have Jon Moxley drop the Continental title to Nigel McGuinness because we're in the UK? Come on, man. Come on. The guy's on commentary, bro. Give me a fucking break. Honestly. And again, he was a really good wrestler. I'm not trying to discredit what the guy has done in the ring. But his whole stipulation in AEW is that he is on commentary for Collision. With Tony Schiavone or Ian Riccaboni from Ring of Honor, whatever commentary team they want to put together for Collision, because I don't watch Collision anymore, because I think it's absolutely fucking just trash. But he's a broadcaster, man. He's on the commentary team. It's like seeing if Tony Schiavone had a couple matches, you go see Schiavone versus Moxley at All In. Come on, man. It's just, where is the fucking story? Where is the build? Where is it? Hire a fucking writing team, bro. Seriously. Something. This, to me, as a fan, you honestly cannot tell me that, as a fan, that you're super excited and thrilled with the build-up going into All In. You can't, bro. I don't give a shit how much of an AEW fan that you are, if you're an AEW sicko. You can't sit here and tell me, oh, the build-up has been fantastic. Where? Hell, where the hell is Tekla? Tekla's been off the fucking scene. Haven't seen her, haven't seen Tony Storm. There's rumors that Britt Baker might come back. And I honestly, for what it's worth, I know they're doing a celebration show, I believe, next week for Rebel. Absolutely. And yeah, it's crazy what's going on with Rebel, and I hope that, everything pans out for Rebel. I really do. But, for one, you'd be a dumb motherfucker not to put Britt Baker on that show. Number one, due to the fact that they had a relationship between Baker and Rebel when the AEW started. Baker needs to be a part of that fucking show. But it's also a slap in the face that, you're going to put Baker on this show and then, bounce her ass back off television again? Come on, man. Jesus Christ. And fans have been hey, when are you coming back to AEW? Last time I saw Britt Baker, she was at the NFL Draft in Pittsburgh. Chilling. Not injured, not hurt. But Tony Khan doesn't want to use her. Come on, man. Jesus Christ. And yeah, Baker better be on that show to celebrate Rebel. Absolutely. And if Tony Khan doesn't do that, then he's a piece of fucking shit. I'm sorry. Baker worked with Rebel, and Rebel worked with Baker in the early years of AEW. Britt Baker better be a part of that show in some way and somehow. 100%. Knock off the bullshit, cut the bullshit, and that's it. If you're not going to use the girl, then release her. Seriously, cut the horse shit, man. That's fucking petty. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know, man. I've had my beliefs about Tony Khan, and I've stated them. I think the guy's fucking delusional. I think that And for him, it's like playing in a toy box. He gets oh man, and he wants to be best friends with all these fucking guys. This guy doesn't want to be a boss, man. This guy wants to share coffee with these fucking people, share White Claws, and party on his goddamn yacht. You need to be a fucking boss. Be a boss, man. The fact that you're contemplating debuting the New Day, one of the biggest tag teams in all professional wrestling, in the fucking buy-in for the biggest show of the year, have you lost your fucking mind? Have you lost your mind? Come on, man. It's just, oh my God, bro. Huh. Jesus. I don't know. And the problem is, man, I sit here, I told you guys before, man, I'm not trying to sit here and be like a broken goddamn record every single fucking week when it pertains to AEW. Come out here and whine and complain and, all this other bullshit, bro. But I try to find the positive out of this shit every single week. I swear to the Lord. I swear to God. But, bro, I'm not going to sit here and bullshit anybody. I told you guys from the get-go, and I'm going to say the same shit now. I'm not sugarcoating shit. I'm not. The fucking show last night was fucking horrible. This is the build-up and the go-home show to your biggest fucking show of the year, and this is the best you got to offer. No Kenny Omega, who was your AEW World Champion, mind you, going into the biggest show of the year. Omega's a no-show. The main event, we get Swerve Strickland versus Jack Perry, which, oh yeah, that makes total fucking sense. Then we get a six-man tag team matchup here between the Bucks teaming up with Copeland, taking on Brian Cage, Rocky Romero, and Doyle. No signs of Cage until after the match, where Copeland finally says, the hell with it, and hits a spear on Nick Jackson at the end of the match. No fucking build, no storyline. We get the Continental Cup semifinal matchup between Moxley and Claudio and Nigel McGuinness and Kyle O'Reilly. And now in the finals, we got Moxley versus Nigel McGuinness. Well, no shit. You're not going to keep Moxley off the biggest show of the fucking year. And Nigel McGuinness, it's a redemption story for McGuinness. He's going to come out to Oasis at Wembley. Fans are going to erupt. Come on, bro. I'm not fucking stupid. Meanwhile, you don't have Kenny Omega show up on the show last night being AEW World Champion, but you got MJF parading around with a championship that's not even his. Walking around with the Triple B stating that he's still the true champion. But no signs of Kenny Omega in your go-home show to your biggest goddamn pay-per-view of the year. Come on, man. Jesus Christ. Like, what the fuck are we doing here? What are we doing? And I'm supposed to sit back, let shit play out. No. I'm tired of giving this company opportunities, man. Because they fall flat on their ass. Every fucking time. And I'm going to be honest with you guys, man. I'm going to say this now and probably after All In. Is it going to be memorable? Sure. The only reason why I feel like this show is going to have its moments is two reasons. One, we get the debut of Kofi and Xavier Woods, Austin Creed. They finally make their AEW debut. It's going to get a huge pop, a huge crowd ovation when they show up at AEW. Two is the surprises or returns or debuts that we see throughout the night. Maybe in the Casino Gauntlet match. Maybe we see Dragunov show up. Maybe we see Malachi Black show up. I don't know. Other names. Santos Escobar, maybe. Who the hell knows? That's going to be the moment. That's it, bro. There's nothing... Willow and Monet. And that's the other thing, too. I heard through the grapevine that Willow was injured. In that backstage segment that happened last night between Willow and Monet, Willow was supposed to make her way out to the ring, camera pans backstage, and Willow's getting her ass kicked by Monet, and then come to find out today that Willow is injured. She has a hand injury. Now, she'll still compete at All In, but she's injured. Going into the biggest show of the year. That's why they did that segment last night backstage, because Willow was hurt. She had hurt her hand some way, somehow. You had a 6-women tag team matchup last night as well. Maya World, the TBS Women's Champion, teaming up with the Brawling Birds, Alex Windsor and Jamie Hayter, taking on Persephone from CMML and Divine Divinion. Again, shit needs to make sense, bro. I'm sorry. There's no other way that I can put it. And you can't tell me last night, oh yeah, the show was so great. It was one of the best, the best go-home shows going into a pay-per-view. No. And honestly, I'm going to go on a limb here and say this too. I think Redemption messed up a lot of shit for AEW. Especially going into All In. Redemption was fucking horrible. I saw the highlights of the show, and yeah, that was the first pay-per-view ever that I watched AEW. I've been watching AEW since day one. That was the first pay-per-view that I did not buy. Why? Because I was not seeing a main event between Kenny Omega and Kevin Knight. And staying up until 1 o'clock in the morning for a main event, that's that, and paying $50 fucking for that. You lost your fucking mind. I'm sorry. I mean, honestly, bro, like, get it together, man. Like, oh my God. Oh, I don't know, folks. But we're gonna get into this show today. We're gonna do the full rundown of the show. I'll give you guys my thoughts about how I felt about the show at the end of today's podcast. But we kick off the night, I would say, with the number one contender for the AEW World Title, Will Ospreay. Ospreay comes out to the ring. He greets the fans of Glasgow. Ospreay says it's been a while since he's been back in Glasgow. Ospreay says over a year there's been a lot of doubt. Ospreay talks about being a British wrestler and working on the indies. Ospreay then talks about his struggle on the indies, barely getting by, barely having enough money to pay his bills, still wrestling on the weekends and still working his 9 to 5. Ospreay talks about the fans following him throughout his career. Ospreay also says that the UK is where the best wrestle. Ospreay also mentions icons of British wrestling, some that are here, some of them that are no longer with us. Ospreay says going through all that and seeing who's the best, and it's hard to discredit Kenny Omega. Ospreay says there is not a man alive that respects Omega more than myself. Ospreay says no man has accomplished what Omega has done throughout his career. But Ospreay says all that respect went out the window once you mentioned my son. Ospreay says on Sunday, I'm going to give you the match of a lifetime. But Ospreay says there is a debt that needs to be paid. And for the people that saw him from the start and his family, it's time to bring the gold home. And Ospreay says in closing, on Sunday, he is taking it all. I thought this was some decent mic work here from Will Ospreay. Some last little build, if you will, for their matchup at All In. Moving on from that, we have our first match to kick off Dynamite last night is a Continental Cup Tournament semifinal matchup. It is Jon Moxley taking on fellow Death Rider member Claudio Castagnoli. Now, I thought this was a good match. There was a back-and-forth matchup between Moxley and Claudio, with Moxley and Claudio both exchanging in the middle of the ring. Moxley then applies a figure-4 leg lock on the outside on Claudio, but the hold is broken. Claudio then gets up, hits a giant swing on the outside, sending Moxley into the barricade. Claudio then follows it up by landing multiple European uppercuts on Moxley. Moxley then hits a tope to the outside, sending Claudio into the barricade. Moxley then crawls back into the ring, holding his shoulder, but Moxley quickly hits a cutter on Claudio in the middle of the ring. Claudio then somehow gets up from the cutter, applies a sleeper hold on Moxley, but the hold is broken. Claudio then hits another giant swing on Moxley, followed by a foot stomp, followed by a neutralizer for a near fall. Moxley then gets up, hits a paradigm shift, and a foot stomp of his own on Claudio. Moxley then hits a Death Rider for a near fall. Moxley then trying to fight for a submission hold, finally ends up applying a choke on Claudio. Referee sounds for the bell, and your winner of the match and moving on to the finals in the Continental Cup Tournament is Jon Moxley. Hats off to Jon Moxley for getting the win in this matchup. Moving on from that, we got a 6-man tag team matchup. It is Adam Copeland teaming up with the Young Bucks to take on the Don Callis family, Brian Cage, Doyle, and Rocky Romero. Now, I thought this match was a decent match. It was a back-and-forth matchup with the Bucks and Copeland keeping the pace of the match. Nick Jackson hits a Hurricane Rana off the top rope, but Cage hits an F5. Romero hits a sliced bread for a near fall, followed by a double Hurricane Rana taking out the Bucks. But Copeland ends up hitting a spear, pins for the 3, and your winners of the match are Copeland and the Young Bucks. After the match, the Bucks and Copeland are standing in the middle of the ring, but Christian Cage's music hits. He comes down to the ring. Cage says he doesn't associate himself with people beneath him. Cage then calls himself and Copeland legends in this business. Cage says there is no dream match, but just another day in the office. and the Bucks are going to learn between influencer and legendary. Matt says, funny. Have they ever named a company after you, Legend? Cage then hits a low blow on Matt Jackson. Nick then hits a super kick on Cage. Copeland then finally said to hell with it and hits a spear, taking out Nick Jackson, leaving the Bucks helpless on the outside of the ring. Moving on from that, we have a Willow Nightingale segment. Willow's music hits, but she's a no-show. The camera pans to the backstage area. We can see Willow pretty much getting her ass kicked by Mercedes Moné. And it looks like Moné is sending a warning to Willow going into their matchup at All In. Moving on from that, we have an MJF segment. MJF's playing mind games. We start off with Andrade's music, but it ends up being MJF. MJF then mocks the fans. MJF says he paid off a couple people to keep Andrade off the show. MJF then mocks Andrade, who's, I guess not there, according to MJF. So MJF is ringside. He spots individual ringside, some woman in the audience. He was going to take a picture with her ringside, but then Andrade shows up through the crowd and tells MJF from behind, how you know. He ends up attacking MJF, and MJF gets out of the ring and walks back up the ramp, pissed off at Andrade. Moving on from that, we go into our next match of the night. It's another Continental Cup Tournament semifinal matchup. It is Kyle O'Reilly taking on Nigel McGuinness. Now, I thought this was a decent match. Back and forth matchup between O'Reilly and McGuinness. O'Reilly was keeping the pace of the match with O'Reilly applying an ankle lock on McGuinness, but the hold is broken. O'Reilly then applies another sleeper hold, but the hold is broken. O'Reilly then applies another sleeper, but the hold is broken as well. O'Reilly then and Nigel both exchange. Nigel lands a lariat for a near fall, but Nigel then applies a submission hold on O'Reilly, and your winner of the match, and moving on to the finals to face Jon Moxley for the Continental Cup Tournament trophy and the Continental title, is Nigel McGuinness. Hats off to Nigel McGuinness for getting the win in this matchup. Moving on from that, we have a 6-women tag team matchup. It is Persephone teaming up with Divine Dominion to take on Maya World and the Brawling Birds. Now, I thought this was a decent match. It was a back-and-forth matchup between both teams with Maya and the Brawling Birds keeping the pace of the match. Maya hits a moonsault, followed by Maya hitting a leg drop off the top rope for a near fall. Maya then hits a stunner in the middle of the ring. The Brawling Birds then hit a German suplex, taking out Divine Dominion. Maya then hits a springboard stunner for a near fall. Alex Windsor then hits a senton off the apron, taking out Divine Dominion. Persephone then hits Maya with the championship, and then Persephone goes to the top rope, hits a frog splash, landing on Maya World, pins for the 3, and your winner of the match, or winners of the match, are Persephone and Divine Dominion. Hats off to Persephone and Divine Dominion for getting the win in this matchup. And moving on from that to round out the night in our main event of AEW Dynamite, we have Swerve Strickland taking on Jungle Boy Jack Perry. Now, I thought this was a good match. It's a back-and-forth matchup between Swerve and Perry, with Swerve keeping the pace of the match. Perry hits a Hurricane Rana, but Swerve sends Perry into the ring post head first. Perry somehow gets up, hits a sliced bread off the apron on Swerve to the outside. Perry then follows it up by hitting a senton over the ropes to the outside, followed by a moonsault to the outside as well. Perry then hits a DDT for a near fall, but Swerve hits a house call, followed by Swerve going for a Swerve stomp, but Perry counters it with a snare trap, but the hold is broken, and Swerve ends up hitting the finish on Jack Perry, pins for the 3, and your winner of the match is Swerve Strickland. Hats off to Swerve Strickland for getting the win in this matchup. A couple of things I want to talk about when it pertains to AEW Dynamite, man, before I get the hell up out of here. I mean, like I told you guys before in the opening of the show, man, was this show a good show last night? No. The show was absolutely fucking boring. I don't even know any other word to describe it, man. You got other people in the community that do this, that have, stated their grievances with AEW, saying it's boring. It's hard to honestly, it's hard to disagree with them. Honestly, for those people saying the show's boring, it's hard to disagree. If you have any kind of common logic or a single brain cell in your mind, the show's fucking boring, folks. I mean, you can try to turn chicken shit into chicken salad all day long, but when it pertains to chicken shit, it stays chicken shit. You know, not having Kenny Omega on the show last night, man, really pissed me off. Because we're talking about a guy in Kenny Omega being the AEW World Champion. This is the go-home show, literally to the biggest show in this company's existence. It's their WrestleMania. And you don't have your World Champion in the go-home show going into the biggest show of the year for y'all? Come on, man. And Will Ospreay just trying to sell it the best way he can to try to turn chicken shit into chicken salad. It ain't fucking working. Because people have been calling for Ospreay versus MJF since day one. You're trying to turn Kenny Omega heel. He's rocking back and forth like Mankind. He puts Ospreay through a goddamn table on the outside. Come on, man. It's just... It's hard to really, honestly, man, it's really hard to, back up this company. You know what I mean? In the direction they go sometimes, because sometimes I'm sitting here scratching my head like, what the hell are we doing? You don't have Kenny Omega on the show, but like I said before, I'm going to say it again. You got MJF parading around here, walking around, stating that he's still the real true champion and walking around with the Triple B title. You saw a guy last night claiming he was champion, rather seeing the guy last night that is the current AEW World Champion. Go figure. It's like, bro, what are we doing? What are we doing? The Bucks, Copeland and Cage, the so-called dream match that, quite frankly, I don't think anybody gives a legit rat's ass about. No storyline, no fucking build. Last night was the first time you see Cage and Copeland snap on the Bucks, where Cage hits a low blow on Matt Jackson and Copeland says, you know what, the hell with this shit, and hits a spear and takes out Nick Jackson. What the fuck was the holdup? You know what I mean? Like, Jesus Christ, man, take your foot off the fucking brake and hit the goddamn gas pedal. Jesus Christ. Where is the fucking storyline? Where is the build-up to the biggest show of the year? It's not there. You know why? Because you have a guy at the helm that doesn't know what the fuck he is doing. That is the problem. You have a guy, I've said this, I mean, dude, I get it, man. It's this guy's company. But holy shit, bro. Hire a fucking writing team. Take a step back, bro. It's okay. You're making your fucking money. You can still be at the shows. You can still be a part of some of the creative if you want. But take a step fucking back, man. Holy shit. Stay in Gorilla if you want to, or the Dusty Rhodes position, or whatever the hell you want to call it. But hire a fucking writing team to come up with some ideas for these individuals on this roster. We're all well aware that the people on this roster can wrestle. They're some of the best in the world, if not the best in the world. We're all well aware of that. Where's the fucking story? Where is the story? Where is the build? Where's the build-up for your biggest show of the fucking calendar year? It's nowhere to be found. Why? Because you guys literally are scared to death to write story, or too lazy enough to do it. Get off your fucking ass and do it. I mean, Jesus Christ, man. It's just, I'm telling you guys this shit right now. If Tony Khan were to actually hire a writing team, this show AEW would be in a whole different fucking boat. I'm telling you. And I'm not sitting here saying, day one it's going to be great, but there will be some intrigue. I think the fact of the matter is, this guy has enough shit on his plate right now. Hire a writing team, bro. Take a step back. It's been 7 fucking years now for AEW. Take a step back. Hire a writing team. Have some help. Something. I mean, it's just, what are we doing? What the fuck are we doing? No Omega. You got a guy walking around, parading around as if he's AEW World Champion when he's not. You have a 6-man tag team matchup with little to no build. This is somehow a dream matchup. I mean, it's, dude, what are we doing? What are we doing? And I'm going to say this too in closing, bro. I'm going to tell you guys this right now. Yeah, there's going to be some matches that are going to be good matches at All In. But I'm going to tell you right now, the most anticipation that I have going into this year's All In is either surprises, returns, or debuts. Going into this year's All In. I'm talking about seeing the New Day make their debut at AEW. We had that Casino Gauntlet match. Maybe we see the returns of Malachi Black. Maybe we see a debut, maybe, of Dragunov. That to me is what I'm holding on to, bro. Which is not saying a lot. But that's what's exciting me going into All In. That's what I'm holding on to, and that my excitement going into All In is either the returns, surprises, or debuts. I'm sorry. I can't get behind this build, man, or lack thereof. There's no real decent build. No goddamn storylines that are really intriguing going into All In. I'm sorry. To me, it's the surprises, returns, and debuts. That's what is exciting me, and that's what I'm holding on to going into All In. That's my excitement. It'd be cool as shit to see the New Day. You know what I mean? Holy shit, we see Kofi and Austin Creed. Or imagine if Tony Khan was nice enough for the fans and actually said, you know what? I'll give the fans another treat, and here's Dragunov showing up at the Casino Gauntlet. Fucking awesome. I honestly, for what it's worth, if any free agent was out there that would fit the mold of what AEW is all about, this hard-hitting, strong-style type wrestling, Dragunov fits in that shit like a fucking glove, bro, in AEW. Imagine the matches Dragunov could have in AEW. Dragunov versus Fletcher. I mean, Fletcher's been already calling for a rematch with Dragunov. Those guys would tear the fucking house down. Dragunov versus Takeshita. Jesus Christ. Okada, Ospreay, Darby, Moxley, Claudio. Jesus, man. There's so many matches on the fucking table for Dragunov in AEW. It'd be absolutely insane for Tony Khan not to hire that guy. So, yeah. Looking forward to maybe seeing Dragunov if he's available. Maybe a return of Malachi Black. I know some people are kind of back and forth on the return for Malachi Black. I'm not against it if he wants to come back. You bring in Zelina, whatever. Absolutely. That's what I am holding on to, and that's what I'm excited for going into All In, is the either surprises, returns, or debuts going into All In. Hell, I'd love to see Toni Storm come back, bro. I love Toni Storm. I think she's great. I think she's one of the best characters in AEW. The timeless Toni Storm character will live on for the, ends of time. I miss Toni Storm, man. I think a lot of fans do. But there's no signs of Toni Storm, no signs of Tekla, nothing. I mean, it's just, what you see is what you get. And we're talking about Tekla, a woman that honestly brought the AEW women's roster back to life once Toni Storm left. Tekla was the talk of the town in AEW. Not just in the women's side of things, but all of AEW. Hell, to me, Tekla was the one that kind of carried the matches for Forbidden Door. When she had that matchup against, what was it, Starlight Kid? When they were doing that whole story from Tekla and her time in Stardom. I thought it was a really good match. I thought it told a great story. It's probably the only story we had at Forbidden Door that was worth a damn. But Tekla seemingly has been off the scene, bro. Had not seen her for quite some time. So where's Tekla? We missed Toni Storm. Where's Britt Baker? You know what I mean? I'm looking forward to surprises, returns, and debuts for All In, man. That's what I'm excited for. That's what I'm holding on to going into All In. And hopefully we get that. I really do. Because not for nothing, bro, the lackadaisical build, little to no story. I mean, but Tony Khan and AEW still wants you to pay $50 fucking for this pay-per-view. It's like, at this point as a fan, I told you guys this before, I'm going to say it to the end of time. Until things change, you had to find that one thing as a fan that excites you, and you hold on to it for AEW, because if not, you're going to be miserable as all hell watching this product, man, because it's the same shit every single week. Rinse and fucking repeat. So if you can find that one thing that sticks out to be like, oh man, that was awesome, holy shit, that was a great moment, bro, take that shit to the fucking bank, because those moments are, it's like Haley's Comet, bro. They barely come around. To be excited for this product, which is absolutely fucking insane, considering the fact that one time, I would say in the first 3 years of AEW, bro, they could not miss. Everything was red hot, everything was spot on. We're talking about a company that probably had at one time the greatest tag team division in all of professional wrestling. And yeah, they're trying to get back to that. You're bringing in Kofi and Austin Creed. You got some tag teams that return from injury, like the Bang Bang Gang, Austin Gunn and Colton Gunn. They're back. You got the Dogs. You got Copeland and Cage, the Bucks. Hopefully the Hurt Syndicate are around somewhere. Lashley and Shelton Benjamin, wherever the hell they're at. You know what I mean? If Luchasaurus is able to be healthy, you reunite Jack Perry and Luchasaurus, if he can stay healthy, as Jurassic Express. You just hired another one of the major tag teams out there, with the Motor City Machine Guns. I don't know where the hell they're at. Sabin and Shelley. You know, you're trying to reinvent the tag team division of what it once was. Because back in the day, I mean, you had the Lucha Bros, bro. You had Santana and Ortiz. You had the Bucks. You even had the Hardys at one point. You know what I mean? Like, you had a solid tag team foundation. You know what I mean? It's just, gosh, I don't know, man. I don't know. But like I said, for me as a fan going into this weekend, bro, the only thing I'm anticipating is the returns, the debuts, or surprises that we get in this weekend's All-In festivities, man. Other than that, I can honestly give a rat's ass about anything else going into this week's All-In, which is honestly devastating, man, for me, because, you know, I am an AEW fan. I'm also a WWE fan, but All-In is their biggest show of the year, man, and I just feel like the build is just, it's not there. And because of that, it's just very lackadaisical feeling going into this year's All-In, because there's no build, there's no storylines that are intriguing enough for me to be like, oh, man, holy shit, I can't wait to see this. You know, that's why I said the only thing I'm holding on to, really, that excites me going into All-In is the surprises, debuts, or returns that we get at All-In, in my honest opinion. So we'll see how things play out. Like I said, the go-home show last night, they dropped the goddamn ball. No Kenny Omega. MJF's walking around parading around with a title that's not his, still stating that he's still the true champion. And just the show was just all over the place last night, man. So, again, I am somewhat looking forward to All-In. You guys by now know why, but we'll see how things play out, man. But the other thing I think people need to realize, too, is what happens after All-In. What's next for AEW after All-In? Hopefully things change for the better. So, I don't know, man. But again, it wasn't the best go-home show. AEW last night, I thought they dropped the ball last night. I'm not going to sit here and say it was the worst show of all time, but it damn sure was not the best, man. And anyway, things need to change. Kenny Omega should have been there last night as the AEW World Champion for the go-home show going into the biggest show of the year. And the fact that he wasn't there was a huge letdown. Not only for AEW, but the AEW fan base. No Omega is just, I don't know. Didn't make sense to me, folks. But with that being said, though, this is my review of AEW's Dynamite. I hope you guys are out there staying safe. Be careful, and remember, stay classic. Peace.